Welcome to Tweener Madness, the high-stakes startup showdown where 8 promising companies go head-to-head for a $25,000 investment prize from the Triangle Tweener Fund. Each episode, founders from 2 companies will step up and pitch their vision to our selection committee. They'll face tough questions, defend their business, and make their case. Then, after both have had their shot, the selection committee will decide who moves on and who's heading home. This is the Exceptional 8, where only the sharpest startups survive. Here's your host, General Partner of the Triangle Tweener Fund, Scot Wingo.
All right, welcome to our first Triangle Tweener Madness. This is round 1, featuring a matchup between Moxie and TutorSmith. It ended up that we had 2 EdTechs, so the audience participation paired them together. So this will be interesting. Battle of the EdTechs. Here as our entrepreneur, we have Jessica Parker, and she is the co-founder and CEO of Moxie. On our selection committee, we have Toby Walter. He is with Co-Founders Capital. Lister Delgado, the man of a million questions. We're trying to pin him down to not take all the question time. And he is with Idea Fund Partners. And Jen Sumi, and she is with Primordial Ventures. Selection committee, thanks for doing this and taking time out of your busy schedules. Jessica, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, let me get my timer. So far, everyone's been right on time, so don't get stressed. And pitch.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Parker. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Moxie, where we are building the AI platform that we've always needed, starting as graduate students to professors and as academic researchers. The problem we're solving is the growing crisis in the quality of research. And this starts at the source with graduate students who are learning to conduct research for the first time. In terms of writing a research paper, it's not simple. It takes over 400 hours to produce a single paper. Researchers work through 35 or more rounds of revisions with multiple reviewers. There's often language shifts that get lost in multiple rounds of feedback. And then this highly impacts our research quality. And this is more important than ever in the age of AI, where we're seeing an extreme growth in scholarly output. The result is 25% of high-impact journals. These articles have at least one error. There's a 10-fold rise in retractions in peer-reviewed journals over the last 20 years. And $28 billion is estimated to be wasted annually on follow-on studies based on flawed research. And this creates a cascading effect that can reshape entire fields. I'm going to use one example that is pretty well known, but you might not be aware of it. So the Porter and Jick letter is pretty famous in the research field. It was a 5-sentence letter to the editor of the New England Journal of Medicine, and it falsely claimed that opioids were not addictive. It was cited more than 600 times. It was missed by more than 1,200 peer reviewers, and it obviously had huge impacts for society. And this isn't an isolated incident. So how did something like this happen? Well, research is inherently, and it makes sense, it's long, it's complex, it's messy. When we think about the writing phase, like I just said, 400 hours over 35 drafts, then we have reviewers involved. There's always at least 2 reviewers, if not 3, when you're looking at graduate students and committees. It can take 3 to 4 months to consolidate more than 100 comments across multiple drafts. Then the writer goes back to revision, and this cycle can repeat itself up to 40 times for a student learning these skills, and up to 3 or 4 times for an expert. And then once it gets past publication, the genie's out of the bottle. We have a Porter and Jick situation. Moxie is addressing this by leveraging the power and flexibility of generative AI and the precision of corpus linguistics to guide writers and reviewers through a seamless, streamlined writing, feedback, and review process. In the writing phase, researchers themselves get high-quality instant feedback. The AI doesn't write for them because we're protecting the integrity of the research and preserving their intellectual autonomy. During the review phase, reviewers are able to readily get AI-assisted feedback, but doesn't replace their feedback. We have a project that acts as a centralized hub that tracks multiple cycles of revisions against the evaluation criteria, whether that be for a journal or a grant or a student on a committee. And then during the revision phase, all of this gets consolidated and tracked for both the writer and the reviewer. So it streamlines the entire process. And the core of Moxie is academic integrity for ethical use. That's part of the reason why we've made so much traction, is we preserve the role of the human and the researcher in the process. We don't write for them, and we don't automate the really important decisions that they have to make. And no one is better positioned to do this than our team. Kimberly is a corpus linguist. I am an interdisciplinary researcher. We've both been in this field for more than 25 years combined. I've conducted large-scale studies and taught researchers at UNC Chapel Hill, Harvard School of Dental Medicine, and Northeastern University. Kimberly is a corpus linguist with training in natural language processing, and she has experience building large corpora across disciplines. And our technical team has engineering degrees from Georgia State. They have Fortune 500 experience at companies like IBM, and our fractional CTO, Gabe, also has an EdTech SaaS product at Georgia Tech. And our vision is a future where research writing across disciplines is seamless, transparent, and upholds the highest levels of academic integrity. And we've made a lot of traction in the last 12 months. We launched in November 2023 after publishing our first study where we tested our first core assumption, whether or not generative AI could approximate the feedback of a human rater. We published that study, built our first prototype, and made a lot of traction. We put our first prototype on the market, reached 1,000 users and $3K in MRR. We then raised $270,000 from friends and family, secured a competitive NC IDEA grant, and deployed those funds to build our own proprietary platform. Since then, we've conducted extensive UX UI research. We've reached up to 8,000 users now. And since releasing our new MVP just a few months ago, we've doubled our MRR. We are a SaaS revenue model, and we have dual channel users. We have writers, which could be graduate students and faculty, and then we have reviewers, often the same people serving a different role. We get our users in through a free 7-day trial. They can then upgrade to a monthly membership at $59 a month or an annual subscription of $588 to save 20%, and then students can save 50% on both options. And this is a sizable market opportunity. There's a $10 billion annual market of more than 25 million researchers worldwide. Zooming in, there's 10 million researchers in English-speaking programs. That's a $6 billion annual market. And then right now, we're tapping into our obtainable market of empirical researchers in the US. So basically every discipline outside of the humanities. And we're executing our go-to-market strategy. Right now, we're leveraging existing networks and credibility. I have a large academic consulting business with existing university partnerships, so we're tapping into professional graduate students and their faculty. These are adult learners who are working full-time, they're in online grad programs, their supervisors are overwhelmed. We have a successful YouTube channel, which drives traffic to our website. We're partnering with academic influencers, and we just launched faculty grants, so we're onboarding 400 new users next month. And we already have 7 institutional partnerships. Next month, we're onboarding UConn's Waterbury campus, their tutoring center. Kentucky State University just reached out, and so did Lynn University. And I'm writing a textbook for the American Psychological Association, which has a reach of 150,000 members. These are our 3-year ARR projections. We aim to reach 6 million in ARR, 8 million in ARR by the end of 2027, and that's just penetrating less than 10% of our beachhead market of professional graduate students and their faculty in the US. Our per-user economics are strong. Granted, we have limited data. We're still a startup, but our average user is spending $400 a year. We have a 90% gross margin. We estimate the LTV based on my consulting work and existing partnerships to be 3 years for students. That's about $1,000, and then double that or more for faculty. Our customer acquisition cost is $60, so we're looking at a 2-month payback period. We see several avenues for potential exit. We could be acquired by an EdTech giant such as Coursera or Pearson or Chegg, academic publishers, or even NLP-focused EdTech companies. All of these companies are actively looking for AI solutions in order to scale their offerings. We are currently raising money. We're raising $750,000 in a pre-seed round on a SAFE. We need to use that fund to extend our product development and extend our runway. We have a whole list of features and functions that will improve stickiness, increase churn, or decrease churn. We need working capital to scale our operations, and our target milestone is to reach 1.5 million ARR in the next 18 months. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jessica. I can tell you've done this a lot. That was very good. Okay, so let's go left to right. Well, let's do ladies first. Jen, Do you have any questions for Jessica?
My first question is, how long have you been working with your other team members? Like, where did you all meet?
Yeah, Kimberly and I have been working together for 2.5 years. We actually started a virtual academic writing center before we discovered generative AI. We were actively partnering with universities to scale this writing support, but we didn't have generative AI. And so when we discovered generative AI and did that first study, we actually shut down that company and launched Moxie. Our technical team has been with us since day one. We met them whenever we initially started raising money, so I'd say 12 months.
Okay.
Lister?
I'll sort of piggyback on that question from Jen and just a little bit more on the sort of origin story, if you don't mind, the origin of the company. How much work did you do to figure out whether there was something else out there that was doing this? Why did you start the company?
Yeah, so the problem that we're solving is one, so I still supervise doctoral students. I do it part-time. And through my consulting work, it's a lot of the same repetitive work again and again, and it's very process-oriented. So when ChatGPT came out, we were immediately like, oh, is this going to be an opportunity to help me kind of scale the feedback that we're giving through our consultants? We didn't initially think of it as a company. So I started teaching my students. I started building out long prompts and getting them to use ChatGPT to get feedback on assignments before they sent them to me so I could hopefully get higher quality drafts, because I spend 3 hours on average reviewing a 40-page lit review. And I immediately started getting feedback from them. They were like, ChatGPT is great, but it'll just start writing for me and it'll just start doing the work. And then that puts me as a student in a really awkward position. I feel like I'm cheating. So then I was like, well, what if I could build something that had guardrails where the AI wouldn't write for them? And so that was the first simple prototype. I built it for my students, where I built in my prompts, and it was a simple application layer with those guardrails. And that kind of started it. And then my university heard about it, and then they were interested in having me build something that had more data privacy and security. So that was the origin story.
I'll be curious on the one hand for you, what it was like switching from academia into startups. How do you feel as an entrepreneur now? Maybe tell us a little bit. What are you struggling with? What are you loving, right? What's still new for you in the startup world?
So this is my 4th startup. I started my first company when I was 20, learned a lot from that, did not have a good co-founder relationship, so that was a great learning experience. I started my second company with a different co-founder a few years later. I was not good founder market fit. It was in a different industry that I didn't understand. And then I have 2 academic consulting businesses that are quite successful with a track record of partnering with universities. So the startup world doesn't scare me, but the tech is different. Like being a non-technical founder, and I've been told to stop saying that because I am pretty technical. Like I built that first prototype with my co-founder without the technical team. And generative AI is great in that way. It kind of blurs those boundaries. But yeah, this is a new world. Like EdTech is new, learning how to scale a product is new, learning about LTV and CAC and all those metrics is new. But I'm learning and I'm innately curious and I love building things. So I'm having fun.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the competitive landscape?
Mm-hmm. There are a lot of AI writing tools on the market, like Jenny AI, Quillbot, PaperPal. We are not an AI writing assistant. So I think that's where people initially get confused. They're so used to like text generators, and that's not what we are. We think of ourselves as like a hub that manages the iterative process, but then also gives like pointed, precise feedback and guidance in time, like just in time when the writer needs it or the reviewer needs it. So it's very process oriented where we're guiding the cycle, not generating the writing for the user. So we don't see ourselves as competing with AI writing tools on the market. There are other tools like Otrio. It's not a tool, it's a platform, but again, it's more generative and they're broader. They look at more like industry application of knowledge creation. And so we're not aware of anything that does the exact specific application that we are doing, but there are a lot of AI tools in this space that are competing for market share with the same audience. But because research is so fragmented, like the average researcher is using 7 to 10 tools at any given time. In terms of our vision, we do see a world where we can bring all of that into one platform through API integrations. So all a researcher would need, this is like 5-10 year vision, is like one login and they can do it all in Moxie.
Okay.
If you could help us understand your go-to-market strategy a little bit more. I mean, you did mention you basically do have a sort of PLG motion, but usually those need to be pushed a little with some sales. If you can help us think about not only this phase where you're going to the people that you know, but the next phase when you start to grow when you need help. So how are you going to go find the $8 million in revenue? Do you have a plan, or are you hoping to hire somebody who will come and help you figure that out?
I mean, my plan is to tap into the institutions. Like, they are starting to come around. Last year, we were too focused on B2B and they just weren't ready. Now we're starting to have institutions come to us. And what we know is that budgets are being squeezed in higher ed. Online learning is exploding. 40% of graduate students are now fully online. 60% of undergrads are taking at least one online course. Tutoring centers are flailing. They're looking for like integrity AI solutions. And so I do think having someone who could help lead the charge on securing those types of partnerships, basically appointment setting and having me go in and do the sales is, I think, what would work really, really well, because I know how to have those conversations already. I've negotiated before with decision makers and institutions. And then the idea is that Kimberly is incredible at producing content. So we have a lot of stuff happening with content creation that brings in traffic. And then publishing is critical. So I think having a research director who's helping us continue to publish really helps with our credibility. And that's been part of what's been fueling our growth. I can't tell you how many people have found Moxie just through, we've published 6 articles over the past year. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the strategy, is like continue doing the research, maintain that credibility, have someone appointment setting to get me in the room to have those conversations with the decision makers, and then building case studies, really showing the ROI for the faculty and for the students, I think will really help strengthen that conversation, especially because I know how much universities are outsourcing to third-party services for like human-centered type support that we're not trying to replace. We're just trying to scale that because we are very human in the loop. Like, we don't want to replace the role of the teacher or the supervisor or the researcher. We just want to strengthen them.
Jen, last word.
All right. So what's the disaster plan? Say you're not able to raise the $750K or the full $750K. What's the backup plan?
I'm actively thinking about that in terms, so we have some accounts receivable, and so I thought about an SBA loan to get us through. We have several universities that we're speaking with that could be pretty large scale contracts, but that we won't see that money until the fall. We've thought about trying to bootstrap it through my own personal investment using cash flow from the consulting. Like, I think worst case scenario is I have to combine the businesses, rely on cash flow from the consulting business, which is highly profitable, to float Moxie. Ultimately, if I had to do that, I do think the Moxie revenue would it would take over the consulting revenue, but that's kind of my backup plan.
Okay.
Thanks, Jessica. We appreciate it. You did a great job. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well done.
All right, and here we go with the second part of round 1. Yeah. We have Austin Ketola. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Yep. Awesome. And he's with TutorSmith. All right, Austin, let me get my timer going. You have 2 minutes. Just kidding.
So we really got to change it then.
You have 10 minutes. Sorry. And we'll be going right now. Go.
Awesome. Well, great to see you guys. Thanks for taking the time. But my name is Austin Ketola, here with TutorSmith, or TutorSmith Quest. Long story, we're pivoting so that it won't be the name for too much longer. But yeah, so I want to start off with kind of the problem that we're solving. I want you to imagine a student named Alex. And Alex is an early high school student, really bright kid, but kind of struggling with math. And not really sure why, but from a lower income family, the parents don't necessarily have the time to be able to help them with homework and everything, and just kind of not a huge fan of school, kind of struggling a little bit. So why are they struggling? So here's kind of an abstract representation of kind of the pedagogy of learning throughout school. So of course there's the foundations, like the addition, subtraction, multiplication, the unit numbers and things like that, and building up to more advanced concepts like algebra and calculus and whatnot. And if a student is missing some of these foundational concepts, it can kind of bleed through and follow them throughout school and make it to where something like pre-calc can be hard for a student like Alex. So really it's difficult for teachers with say like 30, 40 students in a classroom to be able to work with all of these students and identify some of these foundational concepts that they're missing and really address each individual's needs. So what kind of happens with this? So this is a graph of something called the achievement gap, which is basically the difference in performance of students from more privileged backgrounds versus not as privileged backgrounds. So this one in particular is students that qualify based on income for free or reduced price lunch. So you can see like the students from a higher income background tend to do better at like a 40-50% proficiency rate, and those from a lower income background tend to do like around 20%. So there's this huge difference in academic performance based on factors like the family income or race or different things like that that are kind of beyond their control. And a lot of this is due to a lack of these early resources where if a student has their parents that have the time over the summer to be able to kind of help them with math or provide resources like tutors, they can do really well. But a lack of these resources can cause a lot of compounding effects that can affect their college acceptance rates and careers and really everything down the line. So this problem that we're solving is that students lack access to high quality personalized resources in schools. And a couple years ago, started kind of trying to tackle this issue. I personally was a tutor in middle and high school, doing a lot of like peer-to-peer stuff, doing large group volunteer sessions and Calc TA. So I was thinking, how can we reduce the barriers to access to a high quality resource like tutoring? And for the past couple of years, I've been kind of working on that, addressing different things like the cost and flexibility, and working a lot with parents and teachers to build the ideal platform. And with that, we're trying to make our differentiator the data and analytics side of things, especially with things like AI coming into play, being able to better track an individual student's performance and be able to use that to better tailor the curriculum and tutoring experience for them. And so later last year, ended up making a demo that would kind of take in student data, say like an 8th grade student studying math, and be able to generate a customized curriculum for them and tailored like learning or a lesson plan and things like that that would help make the tutor's job easier and more effective. And ended up showing that to some teachers and some educators around the area, and they really like that. So we're exploring that some more, and in the past month or two, been pivoting and working on a completely different demo. So the tutoring side of things is completely different, moving more on the software and diagnostic side of things. In last month in January, once we kind of decided to commit to this pivot, started talking to a lot more teachers and kind of more in-depth conversations, kind of learning about this software space and figuring out what their needs are, and talked to about 20 teachers, mostly in like high school math, to try and figure out what the current solutions were, like IXL, kind of figuring out how we can improve upon that. So the big things that we heard was a lot of them are one-size-fits-all approach, where every student gets the same experience and it's not really personalized to them, which is kind of how most schools operate at a high level, especially public schools. These programs can be inaccurate to a student's real self, so they'll kind of take a short-term view of the student. Maybe they're having an off day and doesn't really track progress over time. And then it's costly to access these high-quality tools like tutoring or the outside resources, especially within public funding and just within a school. And then the feedback for students is usually generic and poor, where it may say like 60% of the students are struggling with this specific concept, but it's up to the teacher to be able to do, create the actions based on that. So we're working on Quest. And what exactly is Quest? So it's a hyper-personalized learning platform, basically for the computer people, like we're calling it like an OS, basically for personalized learning. So having this kind of centralized hub, and starting with the gamified learning platform to be able to assess students and dynamically create content to address these specific needs. So starting off with a gamification and game-based learning platform, kind of like Duolingo, where students will kind of take these assessment games and it'll be able to dynamically generate content and say if a student's struggling with multiplication, be able to kind of take them back, adjust to that, and everyone be able to have this really personalized experience. And with that, we're doing AI-driven learning pathways. So having like the kind of diagnostic sections that are kind of similar for the whole class, and then being able to assess and address that for every student. And then with that, the kind of dynamic student profiles. So being able to use it over the longer term, maybe multiple times a week, and being able to have these really deep insights that are actionable to tutors or to teachers. And yeah, so how it works, a teacher will sign up and go through this curriculum generation process that'll kind of pull from state standards and align them with that for, say, the standardized test and whatnot, and then be able to generate these modules for the whole class. And then each student will kind of go through the first few modules, be able to assess their performance, and then dynamically generate these Duolingo-like modules. And then past that, the teachers will be able to get advanced reports and say, like, advanced insights like little Timmy needs to work on long division, and they may be struggling because of this, this, and this. So building out a demo for that right now. And here's one visual from the demo for the curriculum generation for teachers. So this is basically a visualization of how teachers can generate this curriculum, and it kind of links with the state standards and shows kind of how each of the topics that they're learning in class kind of relate to each other, and having this kind of idea of, or this is a visual representation of how all of the concepts connect and being able to address them for every student, since they can be really complicated and interconnected. And then here's another screenshot from the demo right now from just the basic gameplay. So going to have different kind of micro games like multiple choice, drag and drop, different things kind of like Duolingo that will kind of consist of levels and have goals and things like that. So yeah, talking a little bit more about the market, there are over 50 million students in the US right now, with a little over 30 being in elementary and middle school, and then about 15, 20 being in high school. We're going to address the kind of late middle school, early high school, specifically in math in the beginning, because that's where the biggest need is. And there are some products that exist for younger students, but they're really childlike and not really as fun for the older students from what we've heard from the teachers. So really trying to address that kind of early high school math. And for the actual market for game-based learning specifically, it's about 17 billion, so pretty large market, and it seems to be growing a lot at about 22% each year. So there's a lot of growth right now with AI and everything, and I guess past COVID with EdTech, there's a lot of opportunity right there. So yeah, you're probably wondering what makes us different than our competitors, and to kind of tell that, I'm going to tell kind of the progression of learning tools, starting with static content. So companies like YouTube and Khan Academy that provide these kind of modules and a lot of easy to access free content that can be really good for students, especially if they're kind of missing that foundation. But of course, it's kind of that one size fits all and can't really be super effective sometimes. And then phase two in the past 10 years has been companies like IXL or Duolingo that have these algorithms that can help with game-based learning and addressing students, but they're still pretty basic, especially things like IXL. I hear that they're really frustrating and boring for students. So they're kind of limited in what they can do. So we're really hoping to be that kind of third generation of this product, of really being able to use technology the way at its full potential to be able to assess the individual needs and be able to address them better than anything in the past. So while still being affordable. So the grand vision for this, we're starting with this demo for the game modules, but long-term, we want to be inside basically every classroom and have this kind of centralized student profile with all of this information, taking in different inputs like the grade books and connecting to learning management systems, and be able to be as a hub for data for students to be able to individualize their whole experience and help each student reach their full potential. So, and also working beyond the classroom, there's a lot of needs for like social and emotional learning, things like understanding their the motivators, I guess, and being able to help them learn what they really want to learn. So yeah, for our go-to-market, we're currently building out this demo, did the interviews in January and started developing February. I'm going to release just the first demo in March, which will be available for everyone listening, I guess. So doing that, going to be doing the pilot programs over the next couple months. We've got over 20 teachers that we talked to that were really excited to try it with themselves and their students. I'm going to be working through that product, hoping to start kind of selling through the 25-26 school year. And then the long-term play would be to keep developing and growing this platform and reach kind of a nationwide status within schools. So yeah, a little more about kind of myself and our team. I'm still a college student at NC State, graduating in computer engineering and economics. Going to do this full-time after graduating. And we have some informal team members, but working with Vivek, who's a full-time software engineer who's helped a lot. Rob Monahan, soon to be educational PhD, helping with the educational side of things. And then Vignesh, who's helped a lot with the product design. So hoping if we do pursue investment, looking to kind of build the team and build this into a full product. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks for taking the time and looking forward to the questions.
Jen, you want to kick us off with some questions?
Sure. Really technical question about the market. You mentioned there were 50 million roughly students that you were going to be initially targeting. Is that the number that you mentioned that you're focusing on for math in middle and high school? And are you specifically targeting the like free and reduced lunch, low income families, or all students?
Yeah, so 50 million is the total US. So
Okay.
we'll be targeting that more specific kind of 16 million of the high schoolers, specifically in math. And it'd be targeting all of them, including the low income or lower income families. Since working with a lot of school systems, they kind of targeting working with schools and districts to be able to access that. So working with that kind of 60 million students.
Lister?
I do have a million questions for you. And I will start with the origin story. I like to start that way. Why are you starting this company? Why are you starting a company in this topic? Because you're not studying education.
Yeah.
So what got you interested in doing this?
Yeah. So growing up, math kind of came easier to me and was a big passion of mine. I was kind of the quiet, shy kid that would always just love math. So naturally in middle and high school, got into doing like peer tutoring and tutoring around the neighborhood and doing things like that, and really had a passion for really teaching others and helping when it really clicks, and being able to kind of use my abilities to help others kind of achieve different things. So I had this passion for it. Obviously, kind of always wanted to do engineering and knew that I wanted to go to NC State for that, but also had an interest in business and kind of knew that I wanted to do some sort of business one day, but wasn't really sure what. And kind of in later high school and getting into college, knew that I wanted to try and do something entrepreneurial in college. And this kind of came naturally to me since I had the work experience for it. And it's a really big passion of mine for equity in education and just being able to kind of understand that and really help those who normally can't help themselves. So kind of came naturally as the idea. And I guess with it, starting with tutoring too, is a little bit more of a service-based business. So it was less of a, capital to get started. So ended up just kind of working on that, talking to a lot more teachers, and it was just easy to work on since it's a big passion of mine, and good way to bring technology into a really big problem in the world.
From all the stories I've heard, I would say that I've probably been lucky never having to sell into K through 12. What's your experience? So let me start there. Revenue model is the district would pay?
Yeah, so pay per student. Also planning to do direct to parents, but focusing on that, selling to the district or individual schools. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about pricing on the one hand, and tell us maybe what you have experienced so far trying to sell into them. Maybe even pre-pivot. Was it the same end customer that would give you the money? And what have you learned and seen there? And how are you thinking about tackling kind of go-to-market going forward?
Yeah. So I guess starting with pre-pivot, we were doing just basically direct to consumer, doing $30 an hour for tutoring, mostly doing directly to parents, but we're also exploring the idea of selling to schools to kind of run larger tutoring programs and like after school programs and whatnot. And I kind of started making contacts with different schools and figuring out how we were going to sell that. So got some of those early connection points. And I realized that a lot of them, of course, it's hard to kind of get in the schools, and a lot of it tends to start with the teachers. And that's why I really wanted to, one, kind of get their advice, since they're the ones that are interacting with this type of product, and things like tutoring as well. But figuring out kind of what they look for, since a lot of the products that they end up buying start from the teachers kind of trying them out themselves and recommending them, and then being able to roll it out in the whole school. So really trying to, one, just address the teachers while we build the product and build something that they want, but also make those connections so then they can get to know, say, their technical coordinator, or usually it's a different role at each school that's in charge of kind of buying and kind of researching these different types of products. So while we're kind of getting that customer discovery, learning who is going to be our contact point to be able to get in these schools. And then from there, like if you get into one school, then maybe the district might be more open to buying it, and learning now as well, kind of what they tend to look for in terms of like statistics for these products, and kind of learning by doing how they kind of adopt things like this. So, yeah.
So how do you envision building this product over time? And are you going to do one course or one subject at a time? Is this, okay, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you're going to build it, and then how differentiated is it with one subject sort of apps that are out there? Because at the beginning, you're going to look like others out there, perhaps.
For sure, yeah. And I just, with how we chose to target math specifically, while we were tutoring, noticed that a lot of the biggest needs for K through 5 were more in like literacy development, because of course, if you can't really read or understand, you can't really do anything else. And then for the higher grades, there were a lot of demand for math and then some science. And it seems like there are a lot of products that help with literacy in like a really gamified fashion, but they're really kiddish from what a lot of the parents or the teachers would say. So there's a lack of these a lot of the standard things like IXL in high school are really boring. So there's a lot of opportunity there to kind of make it engaging. So that's how we kind of chose to target math specifically, since it's the biggest need. And for the product rollout, we're trying to kind of make this engine and this process for the kind of evaluation and then doing customized feedback in this kind of personalized learning system that can be kind of universal, but of course it's kind of depends on the subject, how the pedagogy kind of builds on itself and what kind of tests they're going to be taking and whatnot. So focusing on math, just since that's the biggest demand right now, but looking to kind of expand subject by subject into the biggest demand.
But the content is yours, right?
Yeah.
You're not. Are you taking any content from somebody else? And do the teachers, are they able to implement their own content contributions or not?
Yeah. So we're planning on using AI and having like a database of our own kind of pieces of content and do like RAG or retrieval augmented generation to kind of have our content, but then personalize it to the student. So a lot of it's going to be this kind of generated content and visualized, and then teachers will be able to kind of set the curriculum in the beginning and be able to eventually have more and more ways to kind of adjust it, but have it to where they can kind of generate it, customize, and everything like that. So teachers and schools will have a lot of control and be able to map it to say like North Carolina 8th grade math standards, and then be able to have it help with generating it.
Can I jump in with a follow-up?
Please.
All right. So you keep saying personalized and engaging. Can you give us an example of what personalized and how to make math engaging?
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
Not your favorite
It's
subject,
engaging.
Jen?
I mean,
That's already engaging.
There you go, exactly.
So I guess for the kind of standardized products right now, just kind of give students, say like different in high school, it could be some like linear equation questions and then like a graph, and there's some variety, but over time it kind of repeats upon itself. So the kind of first step of that is using these AI engines to just have a lot of different options for this and have kind of a similarly structured questions, but be able to do a lot more than just like a basic algorithm would. And in that too, looking to incorporate like individualized student interest. So like if a student says that they kind of want to be an engineer, be able to do maybe a little more contextualized questions, or of course like the basic questions of just like times tables or something like that are you either know it or you don't. That's going to be pretty standardized, but a lot of teachers are also looking for kind of more complex problems and things like word problems that figuring out ways to make it more interesting to students and have like that kind of engine to give them one that we know that they'll probably like. So I guess that's a little broad, but being able to make it, figure out how, what they'll find more interesting.
that makes sense.
Is this your first company?
Yeah.
Is this the first time? No lemonade stands or anything when you were younger?
No.
So what do you think is going to be the hardest part of building this company?
Yeah. So right now, I think it took us a while to find more clearly identify the problem. And I think with tutoring, it's a more competitive space. And I think there's opportunity there, but something like this is a lot bigger of a game changer. So I think developing it.
Your team, can you help us get to know your team a little? How are they going to help you with the parts that are building the company, with the parts that are harder for you? Because it sounds like you have a very good vision. I mean, this is a big vision, right? Like if you could do this, it is the third type of generation of tools that are helping teach. But how do you get there? Is your team capable of building it? Making it happen?
So these are people that have helped me in the past kind of informally. Starting with Vignesh at the bottom. He's a grad student at NC State. Came from India and met him at a networking event, but he had some experience at an EdTech company in India, just giving a lot of good advice and helping kind of plan the product. So kind of talked with him, picking his brain, and he actually introduced me to Vivek, who's a software engineer back in India working full time. I was like, hey, if you need some help kind of planning the software and working on it, he's happy to help. So worked with him a good bit kind of closely since I'm still kind of started doing a lot of web development this past summer and been kind of teaching myself. So he's been a really big help in kind of learning those skills. And then Rob Monahan is someone I got in contact with through NC State's College of Education. He's studying his PhD right now and does a lot of research on game-based learning. So he's been great since I obviously don't have the experience in education, being able to learn a lot of these concepts and what are teachers looking for and how is this knowledge built. He's been meet with him regularly for coffee, and we'd love to kind of keep all of them involved in some capacity and kind of building this team of people to fill the gaps that I don't, since obviously relatively inexperienced compared to a lot of them. So I really want to build this team and build the best product we can.
Well, thanks, Austin. We appreciate you did a great, for being a shy person, you've certainly come out of your shell.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Thank
you've done
you,
a great
Austin.
job.
Thank you.
Really good job. Thank you.
Toby, what are your initial thoughts on the two companies we saw, Moxie and TutorSmith? Give us just kind of like high level, maybe when they watch this, a little bit of feedback for both of them on how to make the pitch, what you would recommend.
Right on. So overall, I think both very good, a very complete pitch. They thought through obviously all the different areas that are of interest. They've put in a lot of time, work, love, and tears, I'm sure, into their ventures. With that said, as I think about a comparison between the two, obviously a little bit different stage. So in my mind, Moxie is up and running, has revenues, has a fairly complete team, while Austin is a bit of the sole fighter at this point, which makes sense based on backing, funding, and where he is in his life. So I have a ton of respect for what Austin is doing. But I think there's also a lot of questions in my mind open about commercial success in TutorSmith that Jess starts answering with Moxie. So those are the first few thoughts that pop into my now investor brain.
Okay. Lister, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I would say, though, I mean, just to add, rather than to just repeat, that what Austin is doing has a big vision. I do think that sometimes an entrepreneur that comes from a completely different field, although he is not ignorant here, right? But he comes from a different space, gives somebody the opportunity to take chances and risks that others, somebody who knows the space is not going to. I mean, I guess that's the whole point of being an entrepreneur. So when I look at, if you step back and think about the absolute potential of each company, if both were widely successful in what they want to do, I actually think TutorSmith has a really big vision. Now,
this is the hard part about this, right? Like there's where are they now?
Where are
may
they
not
now?
matter in 10 years. So there's, and we use this thing called TAM, which is total addressable market, like as a thought experiment for figuring. As an entrepreneur, I never kind of got TAM. I just thought it was like a silly exercise, but I kind of get it now. It does help kind of think about that endpoint limit of where these things could go.
Yeah.
Jen, which one do you think has the bigger TAM, or have you thought?
Can I make one?
Sure.
Sorry,
Yeah.
cut you off. But to that point, what I think is interesting and for entrepreneurs good to know is that I think investors look for different things too. So I think there is a constant debate we often have between, do you look for a tiny chance that something will be exceptional, or do you look for a larger chance that something will be good or great? Which might be the point here between the two companies.
Yeah. Jen, what are your thoughts?
That was really well said. I think that is exactly the point here. I do feel like Austin is, the vision that Austin has can be incredibly transformational for education in general, especially when he got into the specifics of how to make it personalized and engaging. Just knowing some trends in education right now, that seems to be where it's going, especially as we have more tools developed with Gen AI. And so there is really high potential there, but there are some pretty big red flags. He doesn't have the team built out yet. That's something that could happen. He has ideas of the team, and also the go-to-market is a much harder pathway than what Moxie's doing. She already has personal connections from her consulting business that she can leverage to kind of work her way into individual schools, and also into the associations, which I think will unlock a lot more for her. Selling directly to schools in K-12, I think someone mentioned it's an uphill battle. And it takes a long time. So without capital and without the team, it could be something that he works on for a long time and might miss the chance. So it's tough.
Yeah, I think vision doesn't pay the bills. And I do think that Austin needs to work on a path that will enable investors to believe that he is capable of executing on that vision. And I think that's the thing that he is missing.
Yeah. Okay, this is the tough part of the program where we have to kind of pick someone to move forward. I don't really call them the winner, but I think both these companies are great, and I think you guys agree we want them both to win. Like, that's good for everybody. The other fun thing about entrepreneurship is it's not a zero-sum game. Yeah. All these companies we have today could win, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But on our side of the table, we don't have infinite resources, so we have to kind of choose where to place our bets. And we've been doing this by last name alphabetical, and Lister, that puts you at the top of the decision tree. Which way would you spend your $25,000 here?
Yeah, I would spend my money today on Moxie.
Got it. So the bigger vision doesn't kind of trump the progress at this point.
Not enough. I need to hear more.
Yeah. Okay. Based on what you know, yeah. Toby, you and I are fellow W's, so that means Jen gets to go next, being a S.
I do really like them both. I hope they both win. But I think the strongest contender for the next phase is Moxie.
Okay. Awesome.
I heard we might potentially do a survivor type reveal.
Oh, okay.
I prepared something in case the camera can capture it.
Oh, it absolutely can.
It's 2-1 already.
My pick is going to be...
Sorry.
Damn it. Well, actually, we're making it unanimous.
Yes. Okay.
So Moxie for me as well. And interesting to that point back, in my mind, Moxie is less risky, maybe limited upside. As we think about in our world a lot is maybe reaching that magical 10 million ARR mark gets you potentially to be the above 100 million exit and the like. So I wonder where I would see her ultimately, but I think it's a very valid business and I think a cool mission as well.
Yeah. The other weird thing about ventures, we won't know what the right answer is for 10 to 12 years. So that's the, Jen and I, having just launched funds, we're like, well, it's going to take 10 years to know if this is working or not. So
tell me about it.
It's a simultaneously rapid game and slow game, which is very, very interesting. And I didn't really realize that until I kind of got into it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. We appreciate your time and everything you guys do for the community. And thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just like that, another company moves one step closer to a $25,000 investment from the Triangle Tweener Fund. The competition is heating up, and the Fabulous Four is next. Who will rise, who will fall, and who will claim the ultimate prize? This episode was edited and produced by Walk West. Want to follow more of the action? Visit tweenermadness.com and follow us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and more.